Yo, what's going on? This is the NRW, where nerds rule the world. It's your boy, Kuya P, and I'm back for another interview. Today, I have a cat that I've known, for quite some time. I don't know how long has it been, Harry? It's been,
man, easily
probably it's been a decade,
like,
I think, right?
shy of. I
Yeah.
saw that I knew Tyler and JD for almost 9. And I
Yeah,
was like, oh my God, 9 years
crazy,
with these guys. So
right?
you're like right behind
Us
them.
losers.
You're right behind them. So easily
Yeah.
8 plus 9,
Yeah,
somewhere in that
something
window.
like that. So, all
Yeah,
y'all, as you see on the screen, I have a special guest. I've known this brother for we're counting almost 9-10 years. Who knows?
yeah,
But
shy of a decade, easy.
known him for some time. Great dude. Met him in my cosplay days. You know, I was still in those cosplay days, I guess. You know, we're in pandemic time, so that kind of changed everything. We're in a funky twilight zone right now. But
Yeah,
good friend, former military cat. We connected on that, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Who didn't know who had this passion for writing, and during these pandemic times, I guess found himself as an author. So proud of this brother. Seeing his success lead to then becoming part of this wonderful festival called the Fright Reads Book Festival. That we'll also talk about that. And he has a new book called Chemical Burns. There's a lot to talk about, and it's a good friend. Let me introduce Harry Carpenter. What's going on, Harry? I'm shooting off air horns right now. You're not going to hear it.
Bum, 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 bum.
I put it in post, but that's what's going off. Welcome, my brother. How are you today?
Man, I am good. I mean, you can see behind me it's Ghostbusters. They put that new game out.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, man, I got to get back on here because I got NRW in like 5 seconds. And I'm just like, I got to finish this mission. Come here, Slimer. I got you. So it's been a good day.
Excellent. I gotta peep that game. I know
Yes,
my checkpoint squad on the channel. They cover gaming for me, and they've been raving about it. So I'm gonna find some game time. Does it have like multiplayer so you and I can like bust some ghosts together?
So it's got crossplay. So I'm on Xbox. So I don't know if you're PC
I'm on Xbox
or PlayStation, whatever.
Okay.
But you can play with everybody, which is great. So it's kind of like you play Dead by Daylight.
I have it
or dabbled in it at least.
Yes,
Like you know the structure.
Yeah.
Like there's one killer and then there's like 4 survivors and they got to try to survive while you try to Jason Voorhees them to death. It's like that.
Okay.
But I think the format resonates with me a little bit more because like I like Dead by Daylight, but I'm just like something about grabbing that proton pack is just makes it more fun. So you got like so far they have the proton pack and the PKE meter are like your core tools that you use. You can get like ghost EMPs, whatever, cool little gadgetry, but that's like the core of it. But like in its beginnings, I'm impressed. The customization alone. I was going through like the color schemes for the jumpsuits, and I was playing with a friend of mine last night, and I was like, all right, so from left to right, you got the traditional tan, which is the normal one they wear. That one is Venkman from the Ghostbusters cartoon. That's Egon from the Ghostbusters. And I'm like naming everything off where it's from. Like there's just so much in there. Like it feels like there can be more, but the amount of stuff that they've crammed in there for tiny little minute details, like they knew what they were doing.
Dope.
And it's just the structure's fun. You're in and out quick. A match takes like 10-15 minutes tops. And you just level up, upgrade your colors, upgrade your accessories. You can wear a cool hat.
Yeah.
The facial hair game is kind of weak though. They have they either have porn stash, goatee, or really, really, really bad 5 o'clock shadow.
All right, I love it. Well, I will. We'll have to connect later so I can get what your Xbox username is. We can match up and I can know when you're on and we can play together. But this episode, Harry Carpenter interview sponsored by Ghostbusters. You get a plug because we're giving you a lot of play out the gate.
I am a Charm City Ghostbuster, so
There we go. Shout out to Charm City Ghostbusters. Shout out to Ghostbusters. It's also what brought me and Harry together. I think also in a way.
Yeah.
Our combined love and passion for the Ghostbusters. So mad love to them. But this is all about Harry Carpenter. I want to go through a little bit of your story because I know your personal story is what you drew from for a lot of your creative work.
A lot of it, yeah.
Latest work. So let's talk a little bit about that, man. Let's I saw from my notes, I never realized you were born in Baltimore. Like, you're a Maryland cat through and through. I thought you just ended up in Maryland because of the military.
Yeah, everybody thinks that. They're like, yeah, so let me show you some things around. I'm like, bro, you do know, like, so I was born in Brooklyn, just south of the city.
Okay.
So,
like, you said Brooklyn,
not New York, Brooklyn.
New York, but Brooklyn. Okay.
Yeah, Brooklyn, Baltimore, like that spot right north of Glen Burnie, all of that. So I was born in there, lived up there till I was like 15, 16, moved north of the city, up to like Rosedale, Essex area. Lived there for a little while with my ex, and then got in the military, and they dropped me in Texas. And I stayed in Texas for less than 5 years, came back here, and everybody started acting like, yeah, so there's this place called Arundel Mills Mall. And I was like, bro, I know. Yeah, so let me tell you about this one county. It's called, yeah, I got it. So there's this Maryland Renaissance Festival. Yeah, I know. So I still get that.
Okay.
Because they're like, aren't you from Texas? I was like, you know what? You can think I'm from Texas until I say Wooder. And then you're like, oh, he's from Baltimore.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So born in the Brooklyn area of Baltimore.
Yeah.
So went to high school here, went middle school, all the teenage years spent
whole thing in the city, yeah.
Enlisting into the service. Tell me about a young Harry Carpenter from baby into teenage years and deciding to leave out to join the military. Tell me about you.
So, like, I guess to sum up my childhood, I feel like creativity was always there, but stifled. Like, through elementary and middle school, definitely. I had friends that would write little short stories, and everybody would just be like, oh my God, I loved it. And I'd write one, and they're like, Harry and his stupid book. Go away with your poem. Be gone with your story. High school started to kind of switch up for me. I had some English teachers that actually kind of gave a damn, and they were more receptive to listen to me. So we would talk about like little quips and little short stories. I wrote a poem that was submitted off to some contest, and it won an award. And I kind of didn't really pursue anything, but I was like, man, this is fun. Always loved English class and anything creative. Math was on the back burner. Still is. I hate math. You should watch me trying to crunch numbers for like the ticket sales and stuff. I'm like, I'm glad there's apps for this, because man, if I was straight up just sitting here trying to do math, I would be done. But yeah, like all the way through high school, like it's funny because I never really wrote, but it was always there. Like I always wrote a bunch of short stories, and I wrote a story that was oh my God, I found it too. It's in a notebook somewhere. And I was like, man, 17-year-old me, let me just tell you, let me sit you down. This is trash, but it has potential. It was just a sci-fi, like I still write the same format. It was a sci-fi adventure. The ship crashed on some foreign planet. They were fighting some creatures and blasting their way out. And I was like, all right, well, I mean, it's kind of weak, and dialogue is just whack, but I liked it. It was fun. It was, 16, 17-year-old me, whenever I wrote that in high school, thought it was great. And then that was it.
What got you into it? What made you fall in love with that? What was what was the seed? Like, was it a film? Was it a show, a book, comic? What led you into that realm of wanting to write in creativity back then?
So I've always wanted to do something. I know that sounds vague. Everybody wants to do something.
Yeah.
But I always wanted to do something. So I've done it all. I've written and produced music. I have, I've done film. You saw with
no, I'm talking the younger years, because we're still.
I'm saying, like, that's the stuff that I've come from that background. When I was younger, I was like writing music and I was producing stuff, and like I was in a band. Like, okay. I always wanted to do something with creativity in some way. Like that was always me. So like at every like pivot point in my life, I was doing something. I mean, in my early teens, like probably 10 to 14, everybody has one, but I got into that kick where I wanted to be a magician.
Oh,
And I was just like, is this your card? All that business. I was really heavily into like Amazing Jonathan and what a what a comedian magician. That's what I wanted to do. At least, 10 to 14-year-old me wanted to do. But I always wanted to do something that was sort of in the public eye, sort of creative. I wanted to do acting. I've tried voice acting in the past. I mean, there wasn't a time where like young me to current me hasn't been trying to get my foot into something creative. And I think with writing, I had the most roadblocks when I was younger. But now I'm just like, I can just publish it. Ain't nobody stopping me. So instead of it just going around the classroom where you pass around the notebook and people go, this is stupid, this sucks. On a larger scale, the affirmation is there that some of the stuff that I write is pretty decent. So a lot of me growing up was like a lot of apprehension, a lot of like, oh, maybe this isn't good. But like the musical stuff I did, I mean, I played at this, they ain't there anymore, but this place called the Thunderdome. I mean, I've gone in there on the platforms, just like how you kind of just gone headfirst into everything in life. I didn't just go, yeah, I'd like to be in a band and then bought a guitar, let it sit there and collect dust, which is what it's doing right now. But like, I didn't just do that. I tried to learn how to play it. I wrote songs. I did that stuff. And that was like 15 to 18-year-old me was music. When I realized I couldn't get a band, I was better kind of solo, which is again, back to the writing. I'm kind of solo at that point. I kind of semi quasi had a rap career. I think I've let you hear some of that stuff in the past too, just because it's just fun. Because I let people hear it and I'm like, that's you? That's me. But I taught myself how to, do at everything along the way. I taught myself how to do it. So that's the other thing too. Like young me has always wanted to learn. I hate being the guy that just sits there in the back seat, just going, I don't know what I'm doing. I want to be the guy that's the backup to the guy that knows what he's doing. Like if, like I learned how to run events and how to set up stuff and manage people. So if I'm out there with, shout out to Transcendent Events and Kevin Hawk, if he's busy, I can just as easily step in and I know exactly what to do. If, we're trying to film something and nobody knows how to work the camera, I know how to work that camera. If there's an issue with the computer, as long as it's not a Mac, I'm good. And I got you. We'll fix it. We'll get you back up and running. We can play whatever sounds, music, lights, and whatever you want. That's always been me since I was a kid. I wanted to know it all.
Okay. So we're going to get into that because I know a lot of that is you now. And that's what I love about you now as well, that you have this intensity, you have this drive that matches my own, that where if we hit a stumbling block, we'll figure it out and we'll make it happen because we want it that bad. So I feel you on that, my brother. But let's again, we're in this teenage youth years before you join the military. And I want to know more about that different person, because I think this is also educational for cats to see that, while we may be like, chilling at one point and not thinking the world can happen. Like, do you think, what do you think young Harry at that age would think of the Harry right now?
I'd probably be reading my books because I used to read then. I don't read now. So like, okay. I would have probably stumbled upon my stuff. I would have probably been into the goofy stuff. So if I was that age today in the YouTube era and all of that stuff, I would have somehow stumbled upon all of the stuff that I've made and been like, man, this guy is dumb. Look at these guys with his friends. Look at these guys dressing up like Spider-Man and stuff. I would have been all over the web series. I would have been all over the books. I would have just gone down this rabbit hole of all the stuff that I did. And I've done that with people. Like back in the day, there was this, like I had an appreciation for really dumb YouTube videos. Like, and this is like 2002 to 2004, like early YouTube, before they had ads, before everybody was a star. um, I would go down these rabbit holes of videos, like even pre-YouTube. Like I was interested in what other people were doing, and I think that partially influenced just some of the stuff that I did, because I was like, man, I can do that. 15, 20 years later, I'm looking at it like, man, I can do that. And that would be young me would have definitely been interested. But I don't think I would have gone so far as to say I would have gone out and met at a signing. I didn't do public events. I rarely did anything. I didn't go out and do anything. Like you see me now and I'm just like, what event am I at now? I'm hitting a concert like every other week. I'm doing a convention or a festival or a book signing or God knows what, the wrestling thing that I just did last Sunday.
Yeah.
I'm
wanted to go to that one too. I'm jealous of that one. But what I'm saying is, would young Harry be proud of the new Harry?
Young Harry would have been probably indifferent because, like I said, I wasn't a social butterfly. I was, but I'm not like I am today. Okay. Like this is a whole evolution of me.
Yeah,
where
I feel that
I'm kind of I have no qualm about talking to people, approaching people, or anything. I mean, young me still had that because I was real good in sales, but I wasn't like I am now. So I probably would have just kept it to myself, found my books at a Barnes and Noble or something, and been like, "Oh, I like reading this guy," and then maybe by happenstance, somebody else happened to be reading that Harry Carpenter guy that wrote Chemical Burns or something, and I'd be like, "Oh, yeah, I have that book," and I get excited because I do that with the very few authors that I have read.
Yeah,
I get excited when somebody else actually knows who they are, when they're not Stephen King or like one of them household names.
Yeah,
that's how I was back then. So if somebody knew author Harry Carpenter's work, dude, I'd have lost my mind. I'd have been like, "Oh, can we let's talk about that one story. Oh, what did you think?" And I would have just been excited again. And I still do that today. But that's probably the only piece of young me that carried over to today me is just like sometimes I fanboy out. Yeah. But I'm also I'm pretty cool with like meeting famous people. Mm-hmm. I just walk up to him, just, "Hey, how you doing?" Whatever. But Mick Foley, I had to be like, "Ah! Do you know who you are?" Yeah. I didn't do all that, but like, it takes a lot for me to do that. So like, young me, I think would have just been too shy to do anything, and now older me is just like, whatever.
Yeah, but interesting. Yeah,
I'm just like night and day with myself.
I feel that. That's so interesting. Like, trying to analyze for me on a social analysis. I analyze myself all the time. And then having done these interviews that I do all the time, I just found it very interesting that you said you'd be indifferent because like you were saying, you were trying to do so many different things and trying to figure it out. And was approaching things differently. And now you're actually doing a lot of the things that you wanted to do back then. Because now you really made it set in stone. That's what you want to do. So it's interesting that you would say you'd be somewhat indifferent. So interesting. Love this. Okay. So you also stated earlier, you were following these different paths. So it could have possibly been earlier if you didn't have these stumbling blocks, but you had a couple stumbling blocks. You had some couple things blocking your path, and you then joined the military. So take me into that transition, a little bit of the stumbling blocks. Then what made you the decision to lead you into the military?
Yeah, I was gonna say she had a name.
Okay.
Her name was Stumbling Block. She was the inspiration for my first book.
So tell me about meeting this person and how that took you into the military and all that.
Man, so high school me decided that like I said, I was shy. I just nobody was interested in me. I just kind of was just a loner. I met my ex when we were in high school, and I dated her from 10th grade until we got married. So not that was a good thing. It was just like, I was like, okay, I guess this is where we go. And we dated, got out of high school. We dated some more. We moved into an apartment together. That's how I got up into Rosedale and everything.
Would you say was she like your first girlfriend or first love? And that's why it went so fast?
It didn't go fast. We were together for 6 years before we actually got married.
Okay.
So like the time was there. We didn't get married until like 6.5, almost 7 years dating. So we had known each other for, plenty of time. We lived together for like 5 of those because we moved into a place together 18 years old, I think. As soon as she got out of high school, it was like 18, 19 years old. We moved into a place together, and I just kept like going deeper and deeper into this. It was a bad relationship. I wrote a whole dang book about it because it was that terrible. So I ended up working for Office Depot at one point. I mean, I did everything. I've worked just about anywhere. You name a business, and I'll be like, yeah, I worked there for 6 months. But I worked for Office Depot, one of my longer jobs. Especially with young me, 6 months was a hell of a run for a job for me. But I was there for 3 years. I made it to like an assistant manager role. I made it up the ranks. And my ex looked at me and said, "Are you going to do anything with your life?" Bro, I'm literally like an assistant manager. I'm making, I don't know what 2003, 2004 money was, but probably making at least like 32 to 36 a year or something, something respectable, 20 years ago. And I was like, yeah, I think I'm doing all right. I got health benefits and the whole shebang. Well, my uncle's in the Army and he does this and he does that. And I was like, all right. Well, the whole family guilted me that I wasn't good enough. And 23-year-old me I was also having some issues at work too. So 23-year-old me went to the Army recruiting office, talked to them. And I remember I straight up told the recruiter, I said, listen, I'm not one of your 18-year-old, 17-year-old kids fresh out of high school, don't know what I'm doing with my life. I'm a grown man at this point. So I thought back then, but, but I'm a grown man at this point. Just tell me like it is. And I had him just kind of lay it out to me. And I was like, all right, yeah, let's do this thing. And I talked to my ex, my then wife at the time. And I said, we sat down at a Denny's and I said, well, I'm talking to the recruiter. This is what it could be, or these are my other options. So she made it very clear. My only option was to enlist. So there I went off to, I rode a bus down to South Carolina to Fort Jackson, but also took my first plane ride going from there to Arizona. Never been on a plane before. And the best way to do it is to have the military throw you on the plane and tell you got to do it. So you can be triple scared.
Wow. Okay. So you said you went in with some knowledge. So you actually, I would assume then, because you came in saying, I'm not, some young whippersnapper, 18-year-old, you were like, I want my choice of school. I want this kind of a rating. So that was kind of like what you got worked out.
So a lot of it was, I wasn't fresh out of high school. I had been management at jobs. I had been working for almost 8 years of my life. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like I didn't know how to operate in the real world. So I came in with that knowledge. I did my homework. I was on, I think military.com is still a thing. Mm-hmm. Honestly, if there's anybody with kids or themselves looking to enlist, Google, do your research, learn all you can, and then talk to at least 2 or 3 veterans from each branch and kind of put a story together so you can make an educated decision. And that's kind of what I did. I talked to a few people. I had a buddy that was in the National Guard. I had a buddy that was a Marine, and I had I think a couple other people. I had family and stuff that had been in the service here and there. So made an educated decision, and I went into military intelligence. And my favorite thing is I asked my recruiter, what was my job? Now my job is now dissolved. They don't do it anymore, but it was a ground motion tracking and intelligence analyst. Mm-hmm. So what I would do is, as the name dictates, I look at motion tracking. So the job title was Common Ground Station Analyst, which tells you nothing. And the description is like analyzes and tells you literally nothing. And the recruiter looked at me and says, I don't know, man. I think you just go out in the desert with like a radio or something. I don't know. So that was my I said yes to, I don't know, man, maybe you got like a radio on your back or something. I couldn't tell you. I still said yes.
So
The family was just so adamant that I needed to do this that I still said yes, even with like I don't know, man, you could be doing like whatever. You could be like cleaning toilets. I don't know.
wow. So I'm assuming you got them to like, because most cats coming in, they don't know what they want to do. They don't have it figured out. They don't have a confirmed school. Like in the Navy, like we call it a school. I don't know what it is in the Army, but or it was Army, right? Army. Yeah. So like I'm assuming you had your confirmed school, and did you go in like as an E1, E2, E3?
So I
because of the experience levels.
Everything's kind of translatable. You go for your basic combat training, which is just everybody gets to do. Doesn't matter what you're doing. You go and all do the same thing. You climb over obstacles and shoot at rubber targets, whatever. It's all the same stuff for everybody across the board. But then you go for your actual MOS training. Yeah. So then I went to, because almost all MI goes to Huachuca. There's a couple of little places you can go, but you kind of know where you're going, but also you're a dumb kid and you don't know where in the world Huachuca is in relation to you. That it's over in the sand with cactuses and Wile E. Coyote territory.
Yes, sir.
And I didn't know the right questions to ask for the rank problem. I went in as an E1.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing, just slick chest.
Yeah.
I didn't make the pay.
That's what I was thinking. They with your years of experience, like they might have helped you out, made you E2, E3, but damn, they still made you a straight up fresh kid out of high school, man.
All I had to do was complete a fitness test.
Yeah.
And I would have been an E2. All I would have had to do is complete a fitness test and some hometown recruiting. I would have been an E3.
Yeah.
If I would have had just a tiny little tad bit of college, I could have gone in as an E4. But dumb me, I went in as an E1. But I did basic, kept my head down, did the right thing. My advice to everybody, like my neighbor just had their son just go into the Marines. And I said, listen, you keep your head down, but not down too low that you become noticeable on the other side. You need to just go. You need to be with that current. You can't be that rock that tries to break that current. And you can't just be flying down that river. You gotta like find that medium and play the middle. And that's what I did the entire way, to the point where one of my drill sergeants, I don't even know how it came up. I think I excused myself to use the restroom or something while we were doing a classroom training. And he's like, who the hell are you? Are you in my unit? And I said, yeah. How long you been here? I don't know, since like the beginning. So like I was that off the radar that man didn't even know who I was, but I was 100% on his roster. And at one point in time, I was even one of the squad leaders. And you still didn't know who I was. I was one of the people that you would directly yell at. And you still didn't know who I was. And that is the money spot to be at. So I did that through basic. I got to go to Huachuca, and I performed so well. I ended up graduating top of my class, and my time in service got me E2. So by the time we got to graduation, I was a week away from getting my E2, and they said, we'll tell you what we'll do. We had a little sidebar ceremony, and they literally like pulled the patch off a buddy of mine next to me and said, congratulations, you're an E2. Pulled it back off of me, put it back on him halfway sides and crooked. And then slapped me with the E3 for the promotion ceremony. Wow. So I got promoted to E3 before I even got out. So I came to my unit as a private first class and went from there. So being slightly, head together does come in handy sometimes.
I feel that. All right, man. Good to know. So, and I would echo some of those sentiments as well. To make rank quick and everything, and utilizing the experiences you have. Because I was in ROTC a lot of my high school career. So when I got in and when I enlisted, I came in as an E3 and had my school set up and everything. So I echo all of that. to anybody that's considering that or thinking of that as an option. So let's talk about just quickly your military career, because a lot of the greatness that is you now happened after that. But I know a lot of that past, though, again, influenced what you wrote. As we said, your first book was Tales from an Ex-Husband. So I definitely want to touch back upon that. So tell me about the military time. You were out in Texas. You were out at Fort Huachuca. How long were you in? And just talk a little bit about that military experience and what led you to get out quickly, as it were, because I think you didn't stay very long, if I'm right.
Shy of 5 years. I got off that ride. I told the roller coaster operator, I want off. Please stop the ride. So with that, like, I think a lot of what made me now, it's a lot of me's. A lot of what created who I am today was my time in the Army. I'm mostly the same guy I was before I went in, but there's this disillusionment and this, like, why should I do that? Why shouldn't I go do that? There's a whole lot of, like, why not do that? Why not take what I want and take what I need and do for me? A lot of that came from the Army, because when you have everything literally, and you would know, literally everything is stripped away from you. You got nothing. It's like, oh, were you planning on going away for a weekend? I'm sorry, that leave is denied. You're going to be here. We have to go look for a headset that somebody lost in the sand somewhere. That wasn't even your unit. It was the guy down the road lost it. Start checking dumpsters and stuff. Good luck. That kind of stuff. So when you get, like, your freedom to literally just do anything, that's the only downside I think I hated, was your free will just right out from under you. So I enjoyed my time. Like, deployment was fun for me. I know that sounds weird. Deployment was fun because you got to do something that literally nobody else, working some office gig, going flipping some cheeseburgers at McDonald's, whatever, a school teacher, all these people will never do. And it's just such a unique experience. I'm not saying it was a good or bad one, but it's super unique. No one will ever be able to do that unless you do that. The deployment itself was a lot of fun. I was kind of a cut up. Shocker, right? So, like, I was kind of a cut up. I would say stuff all the time that would get me in trouble. Like, my favorite was so my sergeant, he was headed out on his leave from Iraq. He was going to be gone. You get 2 weeks of leave, which translates to a month, because they're going to send you out, forget about you for 20 minutes, figure out a flight for you to finally get out to go back to the States. By the time you round trip that thing, you might be gone about a month. So we kind of anticipated that. But his words to me, he told me, for the other sergeant that was going to be in charge, he says, hey, man, listen, message me on Facebook if you need something, but I might not get back to you because I'm off. But if you need anything, be sure to poke the sergeant first class. And I said, oh, I'll be sure to poke him. Oh, I'm gonna poke him good and hard. And I said that out of my mouth, and I started going into push-up position. And he's like, oh, yeah, that. Yeah, do that. He couldn't even tell me to go ahead and do push-ups because I was already doing it. He's like, I did. Okay, yeah, you knew what you did. I was like, yeah, I regret nothing. YOLO, as the kids said in the future from that time. So, like, I was always doing stuff like that. Like, we filmed a video where there was like a skateboard ramp. I'm sliding down on the trash can lid in full fatigues and everything, just like it's a Jackass episode. And it went just as well as a Jackass episode would, as I come tumbling down the thing and, like, just kind of lay there. But we had a lot of fun stuff that we did, and a lot of the good memories of just, like, fun stuff all came from there. The only downside is we got shot at a lot. Roadside bombs weren't fun. And I actually got a combat action badge for being 47 meters away from a rocket explosion, which is why I can't hear much of nothing out of here. But I call it the good with the bad. I don't dwell on those moments. Those were also experiences that made me. That's why a lot of it is just like, man, I'm doing what I want. I almost died out there. Let me go ahead and get these concert tickets. Let me go do this thing. Let me write that book. A lot of that drive and desire to be more than I was 20 years ago came from that deployment time. But a lot of it was just like I was not your cliche soldier. I was a mix of Pauly Shore and Bill Murray from In the Army Now and Stripes. More Bill Murray probably. I wasn't as stupid as Pauly Shore. But I definitely did see some of those moments. Like that's my favorite thing with like watching those movies. Somebody did some little tiny bit of research or heard stories and they add that in there. And like my favorite moment is, and I saw it in Basic, that Pauly Shore In the Army Now thing with the grenade when he goes to throw the grenade and just like, and then that drill sergeant just like slams him down on the ground and just covers him. I've seen that. And I was like, wow, dude, that's actually real. Somebody got that story. So I was never that bad, but I was always kind of a cut up. I always, if I wasn't making jokes or telling stories, I wasn't living my best life out there. But me getting out of there, the last year of my Army time, we'd already deployed, came back. I was supposed to get out my final year. I was due out that following February. So recruitment came up. They were looking to cut some numbers, and I said, yeah, whatever. I'll dip out early. So I was rolling out now in November of my final year. So that pushed up my whole timeline. We got a new first sergeant. Top wasn't having it. For whatever reason, he targeted me specifically. And still to this day, nobody in my unit even knows why he was coming for me. It's like, you don't do anything. You literally live off post. You don't come in drunk. You don't got to be picked up from the strip club. You're not over there in the drunk tank at the police station. Worst case scenario, you might be playing Xbox. That's where we might find you. And I'm like, yeah. But he targeted me for some reason. And in April, I had a block leave scheduled. Like I said earlier, with like, they can just snatch that away from you. Like, you ain't going nowhere, son. I scheduled a week off for my wedding. I had family coming in. I had to be there. So we were actually out in the field, and I was out processing medically that same week.
Hold on. I want to take a pause. So this is to the high school sweetheart?
Nope. This is the remarriage.
Okay, so that's where I'm. Because the push was military in the story that we've told so far, it was from the ex that we wrote this book on, right?
Oh yeah, we can circle back to her.
Okay, so, cool.
I was keeping it all military with that.
Okay, cool. I was like, hold on, because I'm sure everybody's like, hold on, as we're tracking for right now, is this crazy woman that led you into this? So yeah, sorry to cut you off, but I want to make sure we just get back to that.
So to shoehorn something in there. So the girl that I dated in high school, that I inevitably married in the early 2000s, who told me I should be in the Army, ended up with, at minimum confirmed, 3 boyfriends in 3 different states. That got hoes in different area codes. She had them in different zip codes. She had them in different states, period. There was a dude in Texas. There was a guy in Florida, and a dude up in like Waldorf or something, like southern Maryland-ish. So it was funny because like I found out about the one guy, and then I was contacted by the wife of the other guy. And I was like, man, there's too many pieces being put together. So when I came home from Iraq, we basically divorced that Christmas. Like 3 months after I came back, we were working on divorcing. Texas is a no contest. We were in and out, boom, boom, boom. I met my current wife on an online dating website months later. 2 months into it, I was like, yeah, yes, this is it. And everybody told me, shouldn't you wait? You don't even know her. And I'm like, bro, I dated that other chick for 7.5, 8 years. We were together an entire total of 11 years. I still didn't know her.
Wow.
So I wasted a decade and some change getting to know somebody that I had no idea about. So we divorced. Then I was scheduled to remarry again that April.
So before we get there, I want to just because now we want to not give this ex insanity any more time. What we want to do, what I would like to do for you, my brother Harry, is plug that book, Tales from an Ex-Husband, where if they want more of that story, they can refer to that book. Because right now we're living in the now. We're not giving her any more time. You now have an amazing wife who I know and love, who's very sweet. Shout out to Audrey. So let's go from there.
so Tales from an Ex-Husband. So fast forward years later, me. This was pre-pandemic, so I actually started writing before the world ended. It just so happened that my third book came out right at the cusp of 2020. I dropped it in January, and then 2 months later, the world ended. And then I've just been writing since.
Oh, no, I didn't want you to go into Ex-Husband yet.
No. But I'm saying but so I wasn't writing when you said earlier, like I was hitting it in the pandemic.
Well, we were still in military. I wanted to get why we came out the military and then moving back before we get to the writing. Yeah.
All right. So we
you were getting married in the military is where we were at when I switched up your path. I'm sorry.
You did this.
I want the full story, Harry. I want your story.
So we're working on getting married. We're getting married at the end of April. My leave gets denied. I'm the night shift operations officer for my section because my other sergeant is actually off at training across the other end of the base. So he wasn't due back in a week. So I said, listen, you canceled my leave, but I need to go medically out process. This has to happen. And they usually recommend it a lot more than 6 months out. But I gave him the 6 months and I'm out. So from April to September, basically would be how long I have to just ride out the rest of my Army time. So I worked it out with one of my sergeants, this other guy that came in, brand new guy. And I was like, hey, listen, this is what we need to do if it's cool. So he said, all right, so we're out here for the week. I need you out here for this week. Next week, when it comes to Wednesday, you get on the last shuttle out of here. You get on that bus, take your stuff, and get on out of here. Get on the last one. I need you gone at the last one. If you miss it, I can't help you. You got to stay here till Thursday. But you catch that last one, get up out of here. Go get your dad, go get your friends, whatever. Check in at work every morning for accountability. I needed to be there with my hands behind my back on, Roger that, accounted for, and do that, and then bounce. Go hit the airport, go pick up people. And somewhere in the middle of all that, I had to go see the medics and get them to scribble on a piece of paper that if the Army hurts me, that's on them. I'm not allowed to do nothing physical anymore. So I did all of that. I showed up in the morning. I took the bus out. I mean, I worked my ass off. Like that's not even the definition of it. Because I was day and night shift, because my day shift guy bailed out for being sick or something. So I ran the day and the night shift. I slept behind the air conditioning tube in a sleeping bag, holding it down. Just I would get like 2 hours of sleep in between, and went and did the thing. Rode out, took that shower, washed off a week and a half's worth of shame from the field. That's like, there's no better shower. There really isn't. Like that water just hits different when you come out of the field. So showered up, went to bed. Next morning, I'm there, 6 a.m. All present and accounted for. Got accountability, checked out. Went to the doctor, got them to scribble on the piece of paper, said I'm good. Airport, picked up somebody. Spent the day hanging out, doing fun stuff. Next day for Friday, accountability, president accounted for. Shot out, picked up my dad and everybody from the airport. Got them to their hotels and stuff. Went out and did the rehearsal dinner on Friday night. Hit the wedding on Saturday. Had a great time. Recovered on Sunday. Went back to work on Monday. President accounted for, and I'm here to stay for the day. I went ahead and did all that. And somebody got me around like 10 or 11 in the morning. It was just like, yeah, first sergeant needs to see you. Okay. So I went up to the office and he's like, any reason why you ain't out at my field exposition? I said, because I'm medically out processed. Bullshit. Get in my office. And I said, and he says, you went and got married. I told you couldn't get married. And I said, well, you know, Sergeant First Class Numbnuts said that I could go. We worked out a deal. That man walked into the office with the, I still like, if I could just fast forward, you know, you talking about like meeting old me, I'd go back there and be like, bro, just punch him in the face. Just matter of fact, step aside. I got this. Boop. He looked the first sergeant and me both dead in the eye and just said, I never told him he could do nothing. He just disappeared. Everybody in that office was just like, bro, like you just heard like this collective, like the whole unit, bro. They were there. People heard that. So I'm pending an Article 15. I'm assuming that's what they were called on your side too. I'm pending an Article 15 for dereliction of duty. He doesn't believe that I'm getting out of the Army. He thinks that I have another 3 years. And for the life of me, I'm like, bro, where are you getting this from? Here's my enlistment record. It says I'm out. It says deuces in September. What do you want from me? You pulled it up on your system. This isn't even a doctored up version. This is you on your computer, bro. From there on out, he went off. And I remember that day, they were like, you're going to sign this Article 15. And I said, you could just suck my ass. I believe are the words that I used to my first sergeant. About faced, walked out the door, mad as hell. And the enlistment NCO come out. Hey, Specialist Carpenter. And I was like, what's up? She's like, can I talk to you about getting, signing up for some more years? Man, I felt so bad. And I apologize if she happens to be listening to NRW. She's somehow, for some reason, one of your fans. I apologize for the things that I said to her. Wholeheartedly. I was not in the mood. I was not about to do it, but I opted to end the Army career right then and there and rode it out until September, where I took my leave and got in the car and drove all the way back to lovely Maryland.
Wow. Sounds like many a story I've heard before. So we're all that's a real military story right there. So we're home. We're back home. Why come back home? Why back to Maryland? Why not somewhere else now that you're out?
Do you know the lies that they tell you when you're in? They're like, oh, DC and Maryland have all the jobs. Yeah, that's mostly it. But it was a combination of that. That was at least my my logical reasoning to my wife. I was like, listen, I'm an intel analyst guy. There's no reason why I shouldn't be able to get a job up there. Like, and any of the alphabet agencies, NGA, NSA, FBI, CIA, whatever, all of these guys should be wanting to bring me in. Well, that's that Maury moment where he leans forward with the envelope and says, that was a lie. It was a combination of all of that. And I had some friends that I'd known since I was in elementary school. They were like, bro, come back to Maryland when you're out. You got to come up here. You got all the way up until the day I came up here. I've seen him once.
Wow.
One time, man. One time. And dude's just like a sack of trash. I'm done with him. I haven't talked to him. Like, I didn't go to his wedding because I was working somebody else's wedding because I do event planning. And he was like, yeah, bro, I'm not going to tolerate that. I'm like, bro, I was a wedding guest and you took it personal. Like, you full blown, like, Michael Jordan that. And I took that personally. I told you I couldn't go because I had to work. What'd you do to everybody else that couldn't make it to your wedding? But these people were like dead set that I needed to be up here. We were going to, we're going to do so many things. We were just going to be like, we're going to be playing Dungeons and Dragons, going out for some beers. Like, this was going to be like a weekly thing. Yeah. Like, I don't know what they were hyping it up to be, but that's what it sounded like, was just, we were going to be like that.
Yep.
And
bruh. Yeah, it's when I go back home, when quote unquote home, to me, this is my home now. Like, but
Yeah.
like that's what we refer to as prior service of where we were before we went in, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
to me, that's not home. That's where my parents live. But like
yeah.
those friends you grew up with, though, they're not the same, and they're doing the
Yeah.
same things if they're not, doing anything else, and it's just sad. I just have a sad feeling with them. But
Yeah.
when you came back to Maryland, but you met like you said, you met your now wife. Shout out to Audrey again. While you were in, where was she from, and why not go back to where she was from, and was she service too?
Because there ain't nothing out in New Mexico.
Okay, so she's just from New Mexico.
Ain't nothing in El Paso,
Okay.
let alone New Mexico.
Gotcha. So she wanted to change the pace.
She hated the desert,
Okay.
but I don't think she wanted Maryland.
Okay.
But this was a
So
fair
that just became
compromise.
the end decision because as a couple that you make decisions together. So Maryland just kind of by default because the lies we get told about when you get out and jobs, right?
So when we met, I was on OK Cupid and Plenty of Fish.
Gotcha.
And you just you meet some. I know the ladies meet some real weird dudes on there, but they're not alone. Like there's some choice women on those apps.
Oh, yeah.
The free ones, man. You get some interesting characters on both sides of that gender spectrum. So like, I mean, everybody else's dating profile it was thorough. Like they would tell you their whole life story. I swear, verbatim, her profile said, "I like concerts. That is all."
Oh,
that's the bio. I like concerts.
You're
that is
hooked
all.
in line, sold now. That's what
interests, concerts, and I was like, "Sounds about right." And she had her profile picture, so I'm like, yeah, she's cute, but I know nothing beyond the fact that she lives in New Mexico and that she's my age, and that's it. And she likes concerts. So over a decade later, I can tell you, it basically is concerts, and that is all.
You're living it. You're living it. Shout out to Audrey once again.
We go to concerts. I mean, we got one lined up in November. But if it's not concerts, it's Broadway performances. She just loves the live scene.
Love that.
And when we came up, so one of the byproducts was we came up to Maryland. Like I said, that was the compromise. I told her, I was like, listen, the beach is like 2.5, 3 hours away. It's not the same. It's not the Gulf because she's from Florida originally. So I was like, it's not the Gulf, but it's close enough, and there's less hurricanes and no alligators that I know of. So we did the fair compromise, came up this way. Couldn't land that good old government job, but she managed to get a job. Like she had an interview on the ride up. Like the day we were leaving, she was on the phone at a Dunkin' Donuts parking lot. And then she's like, well, I could come in for an in-person interview, but you got to give me like a week. We were driving up. But yeah, we got up here and all the old homies were just like, nah, now you're up here. Who cares? Yeah. So from there, I kind of went back into what I know, which was like retail and stuff. Started working and used my GI Bill to go to school, made some friends through that. I went to my first comic convention ever in El Paso.
Oh, okay.
And that was during the divorce and remarrying window. And I did a total of 3 conventions. I did El Paso Comic Con, which is kind of their big Baltimore Comic Con thing, but like the Diet Coke version. You got that, and then there was I don't even know what it was called, but it was like an anime one. I kind of determined there that I probably don't like anime conventions. Not knocking Otakon and Katsu and all those guys, but like it's not my scene. I got some dude that comes up to me dressed as a character and he's like, "Don't you know who I am?" And I'm like, "I have no idea, bro." He's like, "Oh, I'm Achi Achi Uchi Buchi from Hakanaka Naki Part 3." And I'm like, "Yes, you are." But that's how it is for me when it's like I recognize some animes, like I'll spot a Naruto and Bleach and those guys, but man, when you get into those deeper cuts, it's not my scene. So I did one of those conventions out of college, and then I did this one called FrankenCon, which is where I think I was like, this is my home. These are my people. And I got to meet Margot Kidder Lois Lane. So I got to meet her, Doug Jones from Hocus Pocus, and literally any other freaky character that he's played over the past like 40 years. Ernie Hudson. That was actually my first experience meeting Ghostbusters. And I ended up linking up with their team through that event. But like that whole past of me hitting those cons back then, I was like, bro, I want to hit some of these like Baltimore Comic Cons and all that stuff. So I did that, and then I discovered Third Eye Comics because they opened up while I was well away. So I went to Third Eye Comics, and they were doing free comic book day. I said, if there's any day that my cheap ass should be going to, it should be free comic book day. And it's almost my tradition now to just go down there and screw around. I'll buy stuff from them all year round, but free comic book day is the day that I just hang out and screw around in the parking lot. And I met Tyler and JD through that. They were, I think it was obviously Spider-Man. He don't dress as nothing else. So the T-stunning Spider-Man. He was a little heavier than he is now, but he was still able to do all the B-boy moves. And I was like, dude, this is a legit Spider-Man. I've met a lot of Spider-Man, but this guy's the deal. And then there was this Doctor Who, 10th Doctor, bopping around on a longboard, just cruising around. And I was like, this is cool, man. I like this vibe. And I got to meet a bunch of different people. And what's crazy is all of my old friends that I had, I've known since like kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth grade, whatever. Like, we've been down for 30 years. And I found better friends in the past decade than I've really had long term. I think I might talk to like 3 people from my like past out of like the dozen or more that I had. And everybody else, like, I mean, I met Tyler and JD. We did that stupid web series for a while. We ain't filmed nothing.
So hold up, before we get there, because that's another gateway that I want to get into. But you met them, so through them is when you found cosplay for yourself. I'm curious when you got into cosplay, and if it was
so I got into
was
cosplay.
Meeting them the result, or were you already getting into cosplay?
No. I was already like when I made the decision to go to El Paso Comic Con.
Oh, so you went in cosplay too back then?
Day one. So
wow.
Here's the funny story. So day one, I'm at El Paso Comic Con. I had 2 costumes. I was going Saturday and Sunday. My costume that I ordered, I was waiting on a piece online. It ended up showing up Saturday afternoon, as your stuff always does, while you're already at the event. So I went with a Party City Green Lantern costume. The irony is, what's the costume that I'm 99% involved in all the time? You probably met me in this costume. So I did this Party City Green Lantern with a light up chest. And then like 4 years later, I'm cosplaying as Deadpool. And I think that arc is just perfect. It's like, me and Ryan Reynolds both started in the same place. But I went, this costume was atrocious. It's Party City, so you get it out of box. Like, I didn't know any better. I'd had a couple of Halloween costumes. My ex never let me really dress up. My ex never let me have birthdays, Halloweens, Christmases. Like, we didn't really go, like, I go hard now. And I think that's like compensating for all like the decade and some change that I just didn't have. So I got together this costume. I went to the costume contest in this outfit. That's how strong I was in the game, that I was like, this is good. It was terrible. The chest piece might have been this big on me, and I had to pin it in the back. So like it looked like I had a beer belly instead of abs, and like, just nothing hung right. And the sleeves were all just wizard sleevey. The only thing that looked good were the boots that I made. Because like, I made my boots. I got a pair of like black wrestling boots, turned them green. Now they make them in green. Thanks a lot. But back in the day though, you had whatever you worked with. And that's a good thing too. Like, I came into cosplay back in like 2011. Like, that's still in the beginning days. Like 05 to 2010 were like early days of cosplay mainstream. So like I came in kind of on the early game, and I rolled up there, did the costume contest as my Green Lantern outfit, came home, got my package, and the next day on Sunday, I went as Steve from Blue's Clues. And hands down, my favorite costume out of everything that I have, that might have been my favorite costume because it was the reactions that I got from people. They were like, "Oh my God, you're Steve!" And I would literally like walk past this vendor table and they would be like, "It's Steve!" And I would stop and be like, "Oh, you want to play Blue's Clues? You do? Right." And they were just like, "Oh my God, he did the whole thing." And it was just like one of my favorite costumes to wear. And that was these are the pre-Deadpool days. And then I made from scratch an entire Sub-Zero costume and made my wife, we weren't even married yet. We were still dating. I made her go to FrankenCon as Melina, and I went as Sub-Zero. And my boy Drew, props to him for getting the high top fade and the mustache. He went as Jax. And we just like the horror convention, that was the scene for me. So like now I get excited to go to stuff like Monster Mania and all those things that are up here, Scares That Care, whatever. Like those type of events excite me more than just like Baltimore Comic Con and all that. That's more of like my vibe. But yeah, I was doing it back in Texas, and I came up this way. I had already built this monstrosity of a proton pack over here. I built that. I was already a Ghostbuster in Texas for a little while. I was working with a franchise of like 4 or 5 of us. And then I came up this way and I went to Baltimore Comic Con, and this is how I got roped into this new group. I'm dressed as Deadpool, and you know how I am as Deadpool. Always turned on. It's always up to 11, and if I can crank that knob even more, I usually do. I took off my mask and I went up to these guys and I was like, hey. I'm turning it off. Seriously, I just wanted to say, like, I used to be in a Ghostbuster group. Are you guys looking for more Ghostbusters? I'd love to be a part of y'all. And they were just like, get this Deadpool away from us. And I was like, no, I'm serious. Like, I want to actually do the thing. I have a proton pack at home, got the jumpsuit, I got the whole 9 yards. And they were like, okay, yeah, here, email me with your info and we'll meet up or something. So we ended up meeting up, and I talked to it was just a husband and wife that I had met. And then it turned out to be Grant and Jesse of the eventual Charm City Ghostbusters. And that's how I got pulled into that. And then meeting everybody at Third Eye Comics was like the other half of that world. So everybody else from there on out was kind of a ripple effect. Like getting to know like Tyler and JD led to other people at Third Eye Comics, which ended up leading to like Liam Stillman and all like that ripple effect of like people that I don't like regularly associate with, but they're just awesome people. Like Fred. Fred's an absolute saint, and I got to see him a couple of weeks ago at a hot sauce festival, and I was like, this man is out here in a leather jacket dressed as Nick Fury in about 1,000-degree weather. Respect. So like meeting all these people, there's just the cosplay world is super toxic. There are some nasty, nasty people out there, just like any fandom. Like there's some nasty people in the sports ball world. There's nasty people in video gaming. Doesn't matter what you're doing. There's probably like crocheting haters. I'd love to meet some because that just sounds amazing. Like your knitting sucks. But like there's so many like absolute haters. So my favorite thing that I've done since I've been up here is just like build this network of good people. Just good cosplayers. That's why I like the Ghostbuster group, because there's no drama. My last group, 110% of the time was drama. They tried to like tell me that the other guy in the group was jealous of me because my pack lit up. And I was like, I'm building a slime blower for him in my garage. At no point in time has he mentioned that he's jealous of my pack because I'm building him a slime blower. He's been over my house helping weld and mold and glue and stuff. Like, you guys are just next level, like childish. but yeah, I dealt with a lot of stuff like that. A lot of hate. That toxic cosplay community was prevalent in that Ghostbuster group, and I hated that. So when I came up here, like mostly everybody that I've met has been pretty chill, and it's been great since.
All right,
Like,
that's a great
like
segue.
10 years deep, huh?
Yep, and that's kind of like how you and I met. So we met
Yeah.
through my various appearances at conventions and shows, and all my hustling and everything I've been doing. And you took part in some Cost Love events, so thank you for that.
Yeah.
And just been really seeing you shine. You are one of the best Deadpools I've ever come across, who really gets into character. You do dial it up to 11, if not more, when you can. So just always appreciative of you doing that. Especially when you've done some of my events, man. So awesome. And it's been great seeing you do that. And to bridge from that is seeing you shine in that and your passion for that to then explore, like you and I connected because when I found out that you're prior military and then and you wanted to tell stories and, I was kind of doing much of the same in different ways and in different styles.
Mm-hmm.
It was wonderful to see you blossom and, so that led into, the tales from the ex-husband, Fubar. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about this other creative energy. Now, we've talked about your past. We talked about the military, talked about the cosplay now. And we talked about when you had the inclinations in your school, your teenage, your youth years. Let's talk about now putting pen to pad or fingers to keyboard because it's different now, right? We're in the digital age. Tell me about, deciding to write that first book and then leading into these other books and to where we're at now, where you're like running a book festival and Fright Reads.
Yeah. So about 1,000 years ago, just before the pandemic, actually, I think I wrote that book in 2018. Sounds right. I think I had it was like a year or two before the pandemic. So I would always tell these stories about my ex. Like, I shared like one or two already, but they were like super mild. I figured I'd save them for the
we want people to buy the book. Go buy the book.
So I would always tell people stories. I'd just sit down with you and tell you some stuff, and I'd sit down with everybody. Well, my buddy David, I would talk with him, and he was British, so he would always be like, "That's truly fascinating." And it just sounded so good coming from him. It just resonated, it just sounded so much better. I would tell him stories. Like my favorite one that I always tell people, anytime that I tell them about the book, like I tell them like one of my example stories is me and my ex were working to get married and we were trying to find a venue. And, we couldn't find somewhere. Everywhere was expensive. We couldn't, nobody really had the actual ceremony. Reception, we could just get a hall or something, and they wanted to do it in a church. So I get a phone call one day and my ex is like, "Okay, I found a venue." And I was like, "All right, dope, where at?" And she's like, "Some Baptist church up in like Middle River, I think." I don't know, I'm like vague because I wasn't driving then, so I'm like, I don't know, somewhere up that way. If I probably know it if I saw it. But like there was this Baptist church and she goes, "Oh, by the way, you're Baptist now. I converted you." Yeah, I was going to pause for effect. Let you get that look like the fuck. So in the book, I describe it kind of the same way I said it to her. I was like, "Don't I got to be there?" She's like, "No." And I said, "I'm pretty sure you do. Like, I got to say this in front of God and all his friends or something, right? There's like a ceremony. I got to say a few words, raise a right hand, swear in, sacrifice a chicken. Like something has to be done, right?" And she's like, "Whatever. Why do you have to make it so stupid?" Like that was one of my favorite little stories to tell because it's like she literally went into a church and somehow or another converted my religion. And like David would be sitting there going like, we would just be sitting at our friend Allie's house. And we'd just be sitting over there and I'm sitting on the couch telling him these stories. And he's just like, this is how he's sitting at this point. Just tell me more. And unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to write that book. Because he would always tell me, this is fascinating. You need to make a book. You need to put this in a book. You have to make this a book. People would love this. So I was like, all right. So when he passed a few months later, like that winter, I think starting in December, I started writing the book. And I just sat down and it was rough. Like out of all of my stories, that's one of two books that ever took me to a mental place that I don't want to be. I had to remember the hardest part wasn't telling the stories. I'll tell you stories all day. The hardest part of telling those stories was to get back to what was 15-year-old Harry doing? What was 20-year-old Harry thinking? I had to go back to that like naivety, like that. I don't know what's happening. Ooh, surprise, big twist coming soon. She's going to have 75 boyfriends. That who was I before that knowledge, before coming to the conclusions and the mentality that I have now, where I was just like, oh, gee, Willikers, it's okay. You keep doing everything. I don't know why I was Butters when I was like 15 or 16, but like that's who I was then. So I had to go back to that mentality, but also still telling you from a position of I already know what happened. So it was a hard thing to write. But once I got through it, everybody's like, wasn't that cathartic? Didn't it feel good? And I was like, absolutely not. But I think you all will enjoy the stories. It didn't make me feel any better at all, but it at least makes other people feel good that they're not alone. They have a crazy ex. Published the book, did the thing. I literally just probably did everything wrong from start to finish. In terms of formatting, in terms of publishing, cover design, everything I did was the wrong thing to do. I published the book. I did this little thing at a crepe shop down the road. I was like, I got this book. I'd love to like do like a reading. And they were like, we've never done this before. All right. And I just started making moves. And I said, I think this is what I want to do, but I don't want to do this. This is stupid. I don't want to write like my life story books, but how can I write my life story, but in a fun way? So I ended up doing Spooky Tales and Scary Things. And all three of those short stories are based on things that happened to me, but they're all like ghosts and goblins and demons and haunted stuff that happened to me. So I was like, all right, I kind of like doing the horror stuff. I'm digging it. So like I wrote my favorite story of the first book is called Demon Dog. And it was based on my nightmares that I can vividly recall. I don't have them anymore, thank God. But I can vividly recall the dreams where I'm being chased by literally the dog from Ghostbusters. And I love that movie, obviously. Love that movie. And for whatever reason, the terror dog stuck with me. And I wrote the stories about this little girl named Robin who is tormented by this demon dog that lives in her closet, which is exactly where it spawned from, basically, in my dreams. So everything that interacts with her, all of like the actions that she takes were things that I did in the dream. And I just wrote them in for this fictional character. And I really enjoyed writing that stuff. And then that did pretty well. I slapped out a poetry book. I just found like my old notebook with some poetry from like middle and high school and a little bit after. And I was like, all I got to do is just click and drag this thing from the real notebook to the, WordPad or whatever and make it work. So just transposed everything, popped that out to the world. And then Fubar came out and I said, I want to write something that's not a short story, something that's more robust. So Fubar became an amalgamation of a sci-fi adventure with horror and my deployment. It was kind of my soapbox to kind of get not preachy without being preachy about my disillusionment with the service and be able to kind of write it in a fun way. Like the main character Chantry, 1000% me. It starts off, they're at the rifle range and this is actually based on a real rifle range experience that I had. I shot the targets. We finished, cleared the range. We had to go look at our targets. And the sergeant was looking at me and he said, you need to go back. You need to either re-zero or relearn some of the basics because you got some good grouping here. And like I had a good 6 to 10 rounds, like boom, right here, heart shot, done. I had 2 in the head, a grouping of like 7 to 8 in the chest. And then there were like 2 in the ear area, 2 or 3 in the crotch, one in the hand of the silhouette, and he's just like, these aren't kill shots. And I was like, I looked at this sergeant and I said, bro, have you ever literally been shot in the ear? I don't think I'd want to keep going, man. You shoot me in the you ring the dinner bell down there with the bullet and I'm done. I'm not fighting anymore. I'll be like, oh no, that's it. I'm going to go back home. So that interaction literally got written into the book. So a lot of this is just like old war stories that have been transposed to just fun experiences that the characters go through. But my favorite thing that I did with it was it's an amalgamation of like 5 bases that I was on in Iraq. I literally pulled out the worst things from each of them and dropped them into the base. Like there's a sewage treatment facility, and I don't think we had one on one base, but it was definitely on this base. But it wasn't where I said it was in the book. But aside from that, every character that I write in is somebody from real life that I served with. So everybody in some way, shape, or form, even in book 3, like you're meeting people that are so the main character is now out of the military, so he's meeting fellow veterans, but they're also people that are, some of them are still in, but I wrote them in as characters, and their personas and their personalities are written in. And every time I find a good place, like to shoehorn one of my friends in, I'm like, oh yeah, you were in the military, I got you, boop. Like there's a character that was, I don't know if you're familiar with the cosplayer Nelson Martinez.
Somewhat.
Spanish dude from New York. He was the inspiration.
If I saw him, I'd probably recognize him.
Probably, but he was the inspiration for one of my characters, like shaved head, the tats up and down the arms and everything. But like he was the inspiration for the character. And then there was one of my other friends who was an inspiration. Like I pull in all these different people, whether they're good people or villains or whatever, they're all in there somehow. And when I did the first Fubar, I put that out. I literally sent a free copy to all the people that I used the likenesses of. Like, please don't sue me. I did you well, and I gave you credit in the beginning. Like, hey, thanks for all of y'all for your likenesses. Whatever. But, you know, some people could get nasty, but I didn't think anybody else would have an issue because who wouldn't want to be portrayed as a badass? The only person that gave me guff was my old sergeant. So the character of Sergeant Matthews was based on him. And he said, why did I have to get killed that way? And I was like, because it just felt right for the story. Like a lot of people die in the book. You're mad because a bump. I think it was a really good death scene because it really shows you like the type of leader that he was to make the decision that he did without giving anything away. I honestly think it's one of my favorite death scenes, and it one of 2 out of between the 2 books. It's like one of 2 of my favorite death scenes that I wrote. But then I ended up doing a sequel. But I started talking about how I was going to write it, and I'm excited. I've already penned the first chapter or 2 or something. My buddy Rob, bless him and everything that he thinks sounds like a good idea. He messages me, hey man, heard you're working on that Fubar book. All right, check it. I got this character. His name is Tobias Cashworth. He's a bounty hunter, contract killer, mercenary for hire. He's a demolitions expert. And he did this and this and this and this. Hits me with this like far-fetched backstory, and I was like, okay. In Fubar 2, there is a character you meet named Tobias Cashworth, and when he's introduced, like the guy that's like introduced in the room, and he's like, and this is Tobias Cashworth, and he stands up before he gets to say this is, and he's just, hi, Tobias Cashworth, bounty hunter, weapons expert, demolitions expert, you know, contract killer, whatever spiel he gave me in the messenger. And the other guy in the room, like, he's like polishing a weapon, and he goes, shut the hell up. You're none of those things. You were at best a washout from blah, 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 blah. And I was like, that I think is fair. You came at me with this arrogant backstory, and I said, I like it, but I'm going to mess with you. But he ended up being such a fun character that he was a lot of fun. But like I started doing stuff like that, and then I wrote the serial killer book, Memoirs of a Crazed Mind. That's the only other book that has taken me to a dark place where I had to get into some like you have to almost think about what you're really doing as this character. Like you have to get inside of the eyeballs of Dexter Morgan as you're doing the kill. You have to become Hannibal Lecter and be eating people's brains with fava beans and Chianti. You almost have to get in there with this stuff. So that one was rough to write, but then, I got past that. Now I'm going to write a sequel to it. And that led me to working with Tim Baldwin and Chemical Burns, which brings you to today, if you wanted to specifically go into that one.
Wow. Yeah, I want to get into that, but just what a story. I love stuff like this. I love just kicking back and from you being a friend to know a little bit more about my boy Harry.
Yeah.
What a turn. So 2019 was the first book. So it's only 2022 and all these books you mentioned. So what's that number of how many books have we turned out thus far?
9 books.
9 books, bro.
I'm in
congratulations, bro.
8 of my own. Number 9 is is a combination book. I was in a compilation of dystopian fairy tales.
Okay, but that's part of the number. You're in.
But
it.
Yeah, but like I'm at like 8.4 or something. Like I have there's a fraction book in there, but I did take that story and put that in one of my spooky tale releases. But yeah, I'm roughly at 9.
Wow, dude. And
That's a lot to write.
Before we go into Chemical Burns, in the lead up to the first book, and like you said, he was a personal friend that inspired. I actually remember that time period because you and I were friends, and well, we still are friends. What am I talking about? But
we used to be
through social networking, right? Where we would, everybody comments. That's how we all as a new generation kind of keep tabs on each other and know what's going on. So I do remember like little posts occurring because we have a lot of mutual friend network as well.
Yeah.
Of that friend, and just how that inspired you as well. So respect, rest in power. But just I'm sure he's smiling down at just all of this work that you've done since that moment that this has kind of turned into. So I just want to salute to him and just give you props of just the beauty of what you've done and turned out to leading into Chemical Burns.
So speaking of the dedications and things like that, so in Fubar 1 and 2 always has a dedication in there. It says to Specialist Stan Soko and Staff Sergeant Jimmy Carpenter, most importantly, because my cousin and Soko both took their lives. Both of them were in the military. And I was like, if I'm going to be writing a military sci-fi, that's my platform to like pop. It's not for David. It's not for Jackie. It's not for the rest of the gang. That's their platform. I give that to them. So everybody else gets, if it warrants it, they get their dedication. But yeah, like Fubar, because it's that military centric book, is 100% going to get all my Army homies that aren't with us anymore and my cousin. So yeah, that was a crazy time too. Because it was kind of a blur. You weren't here for that murder mystery with the Hollywood one, were you?
I remember being invited out to it. I couldn't make it out.
Yeah. So my cousin took his life 2 days before that event. And I found out that afternoon. Like, I'm not kidding you. I went to the party supply store to pick up some stanchion signs and some red carpet. My dad called me while I was leaving the parking lot. I was at my own event for my birthday for a murder mystery, and just like, that Mr. Krabs meme where everything's just swirling? That was the whole event. I'm like, bro, I really wish I would have been there at my event. But like that hit hard, and kind of like that was the first suicide death that I had to deal with since Soko back in Iraq. And the story goes, according to all the powers that be, I was the last guy to talk to Soko. And all I did was ask him, yeah, man, so if you get any work, just send it my way. I'm bored as hell. And he says, all right, if I get anything, I'll send it to you. That man wasn't sending me a thing. But that was the last interaction that we had. And all I did was I went back into the headquarters office, told my sergeant, I said, yeah, I just talked to Soko. I'm going to see if we can get those guys to throw us some coordinates and we can just look at some stuff. And he says, that'd be good because I'm kind of bored out of my mind. I'd love to see some work. And then 2 hours later, they heard the shot and checked on him, and they woke me right up. And they were just like, you got to come to headquarters. And I was just like, I remember you know how like when something tragic happens, you remember exactly what stupid shit you said? I said, somebody better be dead to wake me up this with only 2 hours of sleep. Surprise. So yeah, like that hit hard. And then it was like a good like 5-6 years or more. And then David, but I was like, or my cousin Jimmy, and then David. And then just like one after another every 6 months, man. But like, I always try to remember them and try to put them in the books. My wife gets a dedication usually for the serial killer stuff. Like,
Mad love
I'm
to
dead
Audrey
serious.
right now.
So this is the dedication that I have for chemical burns, because we'll go back full circle back into the dedication area though. But like, I thank my police buddy, my buddy Mike, who's a retired cop, for like, I would ask him stupid stuff and he would try to correct me. And then I would like, well, I actually want to do it this way. And he says, bro, that's Hollywood. And I said, this is fiction. So I'm going to take some liberties. But other stuff he kind of fine-tuned and guided me on. So I thanked him. But then for my wife, I said, also dedicated to my wife, who continues to put up with my crazy. I fear one day she will assume I am, in fact, a serial killer. So I always put something in there for her. But it's always in the serial killer and creepy books. It's fun.
Let's not predict the future, bro. Let's not do that.
You know?
Love to Audrey. So let's talk about Chemical Burns, this collaboration. Tell me a little bit about that book. And
2-year-long work in progress. I think, so I had an idea to write a book, as one does as an author. But I had this idea to write this book about, I wanted 2 separate characters. I wanted like a cop or an FBI agent or something. And then I wanted some kind of like civilian type. I wanted maybe a family member of one of the victims, a reporter, something like that. That was my vibe. And I had the killer's MO, where he would find his victim, chop them up and dismember them, and dissolve some of their parts in this liquid that he created from a homemade brew. And I said, that's what I want, is like my blanket statement of where we're going with this. I have no idea what the plot is, where we're headed to it. Well, one of Audrey's friends down in Florida, she writes like, I'm going to say like supernatural mysteries. And I was like, I think that would be a good vibe. So I told her about the idea, and we kind of spitballed a couple of basic ideas back and forth. And she went off the rails, man. Like she went into like, this was hardcore Trumpsville, where I think I posted something where we were having the riots up here in Baltimore again for like the 80th time, riot number 45. And I was like, all right, well, let me, I'm going to donate to an organization, and do that. Well, she didn't like that I was donating to an African-American centric organization. She said something on my Facebook page, and then she messaged me directly and gave me this huge blowout. And I was like, all right, is this what we're doing? So I then doubled down and I said, well, half of my book proceeds are going to go here, and then the other half are going to go to this LGBTQ plus organization. So suck it. And she just went, and just, you know, had this, like, I could just see the spaz meltdown happening. She went on this huge tirade, eventually blocked me and unfriended, unfollowed, the whole shebang. And I was just like, see ya. Glad I didn't write the book with you and your hating self. So I kind of sat on the project for about a month, and my buddy Tim, who was, I think he was in your row at Fright Reads, a couple books down, marvelous mustache. You couldn't miss it. So I said, well, you write like young adult, like Nancy Drew and Hardy Boy type of mysteries. You want to dip your foot into a big boy mystery? And he's like, I could give it a try. man, let me tell you, he went from like writing like G-rated stuff to R-rated stuff real quick, and that's not an easy pivot. But we hashed out this outline. The outline happened during the pandemic, like in the early days of it. We started writing it and we hashed it out. Once we could start to socially distance but hang out again to a degree, he came over to my house. We had a couple of glasses of bourbon and got through like 90% of the outline. Well, the last page of our outline literally said, I don't know, we'll figure something out. The worst part of writing this book was when we got to chapter 30 something and it said, whatever, we'll figure something out. And I said, Tim, why? Why did we do this? And he says, we couldn't come up with an ending. And I was like, oh, man. So we ended up writing this book and we wrote it on like Google Docs so we could see what each other wrote and be able to make edits and changes and drop notes in and stuff like that. We didn't get together whatsoever. We were just strictly online. We would Facebook message, maybe a Skype call or two or something, whatever. But outside of that, nothing. So we wrote, took it and put it together. And that might have been the hardest book I've ever had to write, because the problem with our format is it's not that we were writing the same story and just adding parts to the story. Each chapter is the different character, which also means each chapter is our style of writing. And it differs. Like chapter 1 is me. So Detective Morgan, he's my guy. So he's one of the police department of our fictional town of Parkside, Michigan. He's a police detective, used to be the lead detective. His partner was killed. And this is the fun tie-in that I did. His partner got too wrapped up and obsessed with trying to catch the crazed lovers killers, which, if you read my other serial killer book, are the nationally touring serial killers of note in my book. So because that's a little tie-in, and his partner got killed, and he believes it's his fault, and everything kind of falls apart. He becomes obsessed with finding these guys. His whole life just spirals out of control. Eventually, he loses his wife and his daughter. They, divorce, and she gets the kid. He's kicked out of the house. He's got an apartment and just crawls into the bottle. So that's where we find Morgan, is at the bottom of the barrel. We follow his story through like the law enforcement side, as he's trying to catch this new serial killer, the chemical burn killer. As the newspaper for Tim's character has dubbed, called the Disfigurer. So we jump over to Tim's character, where his character's name was Jasper. So Jasper is this guy that he works for like a Daily Bugle type of vibe. He's got a J. Jonah Jameson breathing down his throat. He wants pictures of Spider-Man, and he wanted them yesterday. So the work that he's been coming up with lately has been just kind of just fluff pieces. So he needs something that's going to take him to the next level. His dad apparently listens to the police scanners and cruises police blotter websites and stuff, gets word of this serial killer possibility out of Parkside, Michigan. So Jasper then decides to try to find a way to get work to pay for his trip, and he takes his girlfriend with him under the illusion that it's a getaway to this like little quaint town. So she thinks they're there for, romantic getaway. He's there for work, and hilarity ensues from there. Shenanigans unfold. It's it's the world's worst rom-com from there. But essentially, the arc of the story is Morgan is down here, and he eventually starts to climb his way back up. He gets his life back together. Jasper's up here. He's got it all. He's got a good job. He's got a girlfriend that he wants to marry. All is going well, and then that's the arc that we kind of wrote. So the characters kind of interweave and basically trade sides, all while trying to get the serial killer. So I personally had a lot of fun writing it. There's a lot of fun scenes. Some of the characters were a lot of fun to write. Like I got my character's forensic team. They're like his two favorites, his go-to people. That's what my buddy Mike told me. He's like, they don't do that in real life, man. There's like a team of like 20 or 30 and they all have different jobs. And I said, whatever. And he said, it's Hollywood, man. I said, well, then I'm going to Hollywood it up. That's what I want. So the two forensics people are just like, they're absolutely fantastic. And they have, to say that they have nothing to do with the story, they don't. But they're, sometimes you get those fantastic sidebar characters that you almost want to know more about them because they were fun. So I got to dabble in some of that, and just, it was a lot of fun to write. And we slapped that out. We finished writing it. I think it was good to go August. So I had to format and prep it, and we got the cover done. The guy that did my Spooky Tales 2 cover did our cover. So he come up with this the spiffy little torn newspaper looking burlap baggy thing with some eyeballs looking at you. So he come up with that, got that together, put it out there. I'm not kidding. I ordered a case of books the middle of September, and they arrived 2 days before Fright Reads. The book released on October 1st. So I needed them for my event. And thankfully I got both cases, and, you know, I threw 30 some odd books at Tim and took mine to my table, and we were signing each other's books to make sure we could have enough. And what a stressful time. I love working under a time crunch.
Wow, I feel that, and I know that in every way. Awesome. How can people pick that up? And I will also have the links in the description below.
Oh, pretty much everywhere. Amazon, Barnes and Noble, whatever. Just search up the book in any bookstore search engine. If you prefer to shop local, check with your local bookstore. They should be able to order it. Caprico's Books, who's on the Eastern Shore, they have it. I have to get with Curmudgeon Books in Glen Burnie. They will have it eventually, but they can probably put your name in a hat or something if you're looking at local stuff near me. But outside of that, it's available worldwide. Amazon will ship you anywhere.
Awesome. So there we go. Harry Carpenter, y'all look him up, and Chemical Burns is his latest. That's awesome, dude. The story concept and the collaboration concepts is wild to me. That's
different.
Yeah, it's totally different. I found that very interesting, and I'm curious if I would do something like that. So I guess my one of my last questions to you before we get up out of here is, would you with the lessons learned from this process and doing a book like this, what would you do it again, and or under what measures, now that you know how to do it? What would you agree upon with your partner again, or
no?
Yeah.
The answer is no. This took a lot of brain power.
Yeah,
I had to pretty much put a lot of stuff on the back burner, and between that and Fright Reads, the two of them just like sucked any brain power away to write anything else or do anything else creative.
So what would you recommend to somebody that is kind of intrigued on that process? Because that does sound like a pretty cool kind of amalgamation of talent in one book to collaborate like that. So what would you recommend to anybody that wants to kind of do that mold?
Patience.
Okay.
You got to find somebody that, so for starters, I think it helped with me and Tim because we knew each other. We had that rapport for the last few years. But outside of that, our writing styles were drastically different. You get that. So like with mine's very story driven. Tim is very dialogue driven. So it kind of complements each other when that does happen. I hate writing dialogue. He lives for dialogue. He will tell a story through telling a story, quite literally. So it kind of complemented each other. I would have to say the best thing to do is just find somebody that, it's almost like being married. You got to find somebody that you're ready to lock in with for a while. You got to be open to creative differences. You got to be open and capable of offering suggestions, because if you can't speak up and say, all right, so your lady's doing this, but didn't you say 4 chapters ago that she just did this thing? What if she did XYZ instead? If you just go with the flow and go, okay, that's what you wrote, your book's going to suffer and probably not do anywhere near as good, or the editing process is going to be 10 times harder because now you're combing through all of these little mishaps and mistrials of yours. So I would have to say you'd have to find somebody on both sides, yourself and the other person. Make sure you both are kind of open-minded and willing to, work. It's work.
I feel that. All right, I have two more questions, brother, before we get up out of here.
Yeah.
I can always talk with you at any time, and we're definitely wanting to have you back because I know you're going to drop more properties, more books along the way. So in that regard, my two last questions are: since you're surrounded by one of my favorite IPs, you're a part of the
Where'd this
Charm
come
City
from?
Ghostbusters. What are some IPs if you're doing your own thing, you're writing your own thing, which is, as a creative, you want to be able to have absolute control in a lot of ways. I know that for myself, but at the same time, we are influenced. What drove us into creating was these properties that we grew up on and love.
Sure.
So I'm kind of curious, if you were to be approached from a various company, what IPs would you like to maybe put your fingers on?
Are you talking about like putting my stuff out there into the world, or somebody
Well,
else's?
no. So like
if I was
Ghostbusters,
like
would you want to work on a Ghostbusters? What IPs,
Absolutely.
other intellectual properties,
Yeah.
would you like to touch?
I would wholeheartedly work on the Ghostbusters set. I'll write them a script. I'll do whatever they want. Let me just drive the car for 10 minutes. But no, realistically, like, I personally don't feel like there's a property that I want to write for. Like, you saw at Fright Reads a couple of weeks ago, we had Justina Ireland. She writes a lot of the Star Wars young adult stuff. She's writing extended universe Lando Calrissian adventures. I couldn't, not that I'd be writing Star Wars anyway, but like, I couldn't continue a Han Solo story or start telling the stories of Yoda. I don't feel like I have that capability in me to tell somebody else's story or to continue a story that somebody else has already told. So like, if I was to do, like, I like The Walking Dead. So if I was to, like, there's novelizations of the governor and Negan, and they really hash out some stories. What if I was to write like I was approached to write a backstory for Daryl Dixon and Merle? I don't think I could do it, because that's not to say they're not my babies. I didn't invent these characters. I didn't come up with them. That's somebody else's writing. I don't think I'm the writer to do that. But I have a million and one of my own original ideas, and I think Fubar would do well on Sci-Fi Channel. 3 a.m. you'd be watching Fubar, I think that would do well, but I don't think I could wholeheartedly, like, looking around at all the stuff that I like, I don't think I can write like a sequel or, a continuation or a sidebar story involving already established characters.
Wow.
It's just not mine. It just feels dirty,
Yeah. Wow. That's a lot of like self-knowledge of once, yourself. You know what you're capable of. You know what you want to do. So then that just bids to my last question, which would be, what can we expect now? Chemical Burns is out the way. I know right now it's the freshest book. It's literally this month that it dropped. So you're going to be doing a lot of promotion about it. And for my people watching this, go scoop up Chemical Burns. It's available everywhere where books are sold. Look up Harry Carpenter, look up Chemical Burns. So pick that up. But what is on the horizon? What is in your notebook of ideas, thoughts that we can expect that you want to maybe dive more into?
So I've either partially written, mostly written, or completely written. I have Fubar 3. I'm trying. That one hits hard because the beginning of it, I come out of the gate strong. The first two were kind of like passive, and you're just kind of going for the ride and whatever. It's fun. And there's like peppered in PTSD stuff, but it's not in your face. But like the characters go through some stuff, and you're just like, that guy's gone through something. In book 3, it starts off with a suicide. And I had to preference it. I now have to update the introduction because it has the National Suicide Hotline, which is now like 3 digits. So I have to fix that. But when I started writing it, I actually preface it with like, if you're feeling this way, whatever.
Trigger warnings.
One of the neat things, like I was telling my buddy who was the inspiration for another character out of Fubar. And I was telling him, I said, our friend Jim always calls us like weird hours. He's out in Missouri and he's, 2 time zones back, always calls us up. And he's like, there was this one time he called us, like when he first started doing this, it was 1:32 in the morning. He goes, I got a missed call. And I told him, I was like, bro, was that the missed call? And he's like, I don't know. I'm at work. Can you call him back? So I called him back. And he's like, nah, man, I was okay, dude. I was just drunk. And I was like, what's Harry doing today? And I was like, oh man, it's like 2 a.m. So I took that conversation and that fear and coupled that with the feeling of like losing David and all those guys and kind of put that all together. And that's like the last voicemail that Chantry has from this character. It's like, hey man, I was just drinking and playing some Xbox and wanted to know what you were doing. So that one comes out of the gate hard. But I've also got Spooky Tales 3. I got a book that involves a vampire. No, not Anne Rice level, but hopefully it's good. I got a fantasy novel that I'm working on. Memoirs of a Crazed Mind is getting a sequel called Confessions of a Crazed Mind. That's going to be just, I already wrote like the first chapter and I was just like, ooh, goosebumps. So I got a lot going on. So over the next like 2 or 3 years, you're going to see all those books trickle out.
My guy. And when they do, I need you to come back through, show some love to my audience, show me love, brother. I miss you.
Always.
And and if you happen to, actually, mix it up with, cinema, the film industry, like I'm doing, and you could get your boy some work as a Filipino actor, maybe convert one of them to Filipinos, or unless one of them is Filipino, as a Filipino, I'm just looking for representation. I need some more representation out there for us.
Check this out.
What's up?
Fubar.
Yeah.
Fubar, the main character, Private First Class DeLog, Filipino.
Hey, let's go.
So I got you. I got one of the first Filipino main characters that has never been done before, because the character that he's based off of, the real person, Filipino. So it only makes sense. I write what you are.
Thank you, sir.
So I got you in there. A little bit of representation.
There we go.
But speaking of that representation, we got to circle back months later when we start getting close to Fright Reads 3. When we get into this next coming year, because I want to maybe try to get you in to talk to my special guest. Now, you know what? I can drop this on here.
Hey,
because anybody that's listening to NRW gets that early taste. I got first Jason, Ari Lehman. You know the kid that pops out of the pond to grab the girl and pull her into the boat? The Jason that dies and drowns?
Yeah.
That guy. He has a band called First Jason. Well, he's going to be at Fright Reads, but he's down to do any interviews and all that stuff. So I'm going to give you a front row seat to sit down and you can ask him away and do some research, but we'll get into that probably springtime.
All right.
But we could probably circle back and talk about the new Fright Reads and all the people that I may or may not have. But I can talk about that because that's a done deal, and that's I checked the box on that one. So you get the early access on First Jason.
I love that. Well, congratulations, my friend. I know how much that means to you. I know how much you love horror. I know how much hard work and dedication you put into everything you do. And so congrats on getting him. And maybe we can chat him up to do promo for the actual event. So that way we could lead into that to just get the people hungry and ready to come out to Fright Reads, man.
And then I got to get that, I got to get the squad in there this time.
Yeah, we can see what we can do. Yeah, we'll talk on that. We've got a lot of things in the pipeline, as you know. That I'm insanely busy with, and if we can make that happen, we will definitely make that happen.
Absolutely. It's good having you by yourself, though, but I want the squad, man.
Yeah, I hope I'm enough. You know what I'm saying? I'm putting in some work. I'm making myself worthy. If you
were more than plenty. I don't know if people can handle you, but
yeah, like you, I'll try to. I can turn it up into those rock levels, dial it up to 11, if not more. But
absolutely,
Harry, my brother, thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing. I always find this therapeutic as way and inspiring as a creative, talking to other creatives. I hope you find it the same way. And like I said, therapy,
write or do something. Yeah,
it helps to go back into what gave us that drive and that momentum, and especially that inspiration. Why we do this, and every single time I do an interview, it fuels me. It makes me want to put pen to pad and our fingers to keyboard, if you will, because we are in the digital age. But I can't thank you enough for sharing and allowing me also the opportunity to give you love and show you love with the work you're doing, man, because it is appreciated as well. I love seeing you shine, man, and you going for your dreams, because we're here on this earth for a little bit amount of time, as we know. And respect to those young ones, and I love that you dedicate as well to those that are no longer here with us, but we do this in their honor as well. And respect to them. So mad love to you, brother. All the respects. Harry Carpenter, hcarpenterwriter.com is where you can find my man Harry. I'll have the link in the description below. But also for those that might be driving, because I have a lot of people that listen to this, because we live in the DC metro area. We got a lot of commuters. For those that might be driving and not watching this on YouTube right now, for those listening, how can they also follow you online? Just throw some of those socials out there before we sign off.
You can honestly, I got audiobooks too for those that are driving too. So if you drive too much, I got a couple of audiobooks. I got Fubar and all of that. So I got you. But yeah, you just look me up by name. I think it's H Carpenter Writer across the board on Facebook and whatever. But if you find me on the website, hcarpenterwriter.com, you go on Facebook, Harry Carpenter author. I'm pretty much everywhere. And if it's on Twitter, I threw you a curveball. It's Fuzzy Woodworker, but that's literally my name. But just, little fun. I stole my dad's trucker handle. And he's mad about that because he figured out how to do Twitter like a year ago. And he said, it was already taken. I was like, I took it.
That's hilarious.
I didn't think you were going to be Twittering. How was I supposed to know? I thought it was clever.
I love it. Yo, Harry, man, mad love to you, brother. Thanks for coming through.
NRW,
y'all. My boy, Harry Carpenter. I am Kuya P. You can follow me at the legend Kuya P on Twitter, TikTok, and IG. And of course, here with the whole squad at the NRW and at New Release Wednesday, where nerds rule the world. We're out of here, y'all. Bye.